Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of Defense Station Alpha, watching the stars through the large window. New Montana colony spread out below him like a blanket of lights against the dark planet. Farmers, miners, and families lived down there. Simple people who just wanted to build new lives far from Earth. The warning alarm made him turn around fast. Lisa Crawford, his communications officer, looked up from her screen with wide eyes. Her face was pale. "Captain, we have ships coming out of hyperspace," she said. "Lots of them." Jake moved to the main display. Dozens of alien ships appeared on the scanner. They were huge, much bigger than anything humans had ever built. The ships looked like metal sharks with glowing blue lights along their sides. "Try to contact them," Jake ordered. His hands felt sweaty. The colony had no real weapons. The defense station only had small guns meant to stop pirates, not fight a war. Lisa worked at her controls. "No response, sir." "Wait, they're sending us something." The main screen changed. An alien face appeared. It had gray skin, 4 yellow eyes, and a mouth full of sharp teeth. When it spoke, the translation computer made its voice sound cold and hard. "Primitive humans," the alien said. "I am Admiral Caxoth of the Zephyrian Empire. Your species has spread too far into space. We claim this world and all human colonies for our empire. You will surrender now." Jake stepped forward. His heart was beating fast, but he kept his voice steady. "This is Captain Morrison of the Human Defense Force. New Montana is a peaceful colony. We haven't done anything wrong. Please leave our space." The alien made a sound like laughing, but crueler. "You think you can tell the Zephyrian Empire what to do? Your whole species is nothing but animals who barely learned to fly between stars. We have conquered 12 star systems. You are insects." "We won't surrender," Jake said. "These people are under my protection." Admiral Caxoth's 4 eyes narrowed. "Then you will watch them die." The screen went black. Jake turned to his crew. "Red alert. Get everyone to battle stations. Send a message to Earth and all the colonies. Tell them we're under attack." Lisa's fingers flew over her keyboard. "Sending the message now, sir." Through the window, Jake saw the alien ships moving. They were heading for the outer mining stations where hundreds of workers lived with their families. The human ships looked like toys next to the giant alien vessels. "Sir, they're powering weapons," said Roy Collins from the weapons station. He was just a kid, barely 20 years old. His voice shook. Jake watched in horror as blue beams shot from the alien ships. The mining station exploded in a ball of fire. Then another. And another. Hundreds of people died in seconds. Families were burned alive. "Children who would never grow up, those bastards," Roy whispered. "They killed everyone." More blue beams reached down to the planet. They hit the farming towns on the surface. Jake could see the explosions from space. Entire communities were wiped out in moments. The aliens weren't trying to capture anything. They were just killing for fun. "Get our ships ready to fight," Jake ordered. His voice was hard now. He had seen war before, but never against children. "Sir, we only have 6 patrol ships," said Helen Wright from the tactical station. "They have 40 warships. I don't care." "We fight." The human ships were small and fast. They attacked the alien fleet like angry bees. Their weapons barely scratched the enemy's thick armor. But they kept fighting. One by one, the human ships were destroyed. Brave pilots died trying to protect their homes. Jake's station shook as alien weapons hit it. Sparks flew from broken computers. The lights flickered. He could smell smoke and burning metal. "Hull breach on Deck 5, someone shouted. "Lisa, is the message still going out?" Jake asked. "Yes, sir. The signal is reaching Earth and the other colonies. They'll know what happened here." Another hit. The station shook harder. Jake was thrown against a wall. When he got up, blood ran down his face. Half his crew was dead or hurt. Amy Foster, a scientist who had been visiting the station, helped wounded crew members. She looked at Jake with angry eyes. "They're not trying to conquer us," she said. "They're trying to scare us. They want us to be afraid." "Then they picked the wrong species," Jake said. The last human patrol ship exploded outside the window. Now only the station was left. The alien ship surrounded it like wolves around a wounded deer. Admiral Caxoth appeared on the screen again. "Your pathetic resistance is over. Surrender now, and we will let some of you live as slaves." Jake looked around his broken bridge. His people were hurt and scared, but none of them looked ready to give up. Lisa was still sending the message to Earth. Roy was trying to fix the weapons. Helen was helping the wounded. Amy was treating burns and cuts. "You want an answer?" Jake said to the alien. "Here it is." He picked up the biggest piece of broken metal he could find and threw it at the screen. The alien's face disappeared in a shower of sparks. The Zephyrian ships opened fire. The station's hull cracked and air rushed out. Emergency doors slammed shut. Jake was thrown to the floor as the station spun out of control. But Lisa kept sending the message. Even as the station died around them, she made sure Earth would know. The signal carried pictures of the burning colonies and the dead families. It showed the alien ships and their cruel attack. On Earth, billions of humans watched the message. They saw their people murdered for no reason. They saw children killed by aliens who thought humans were just animals. The message ended with Jake's voice, calm and clear even as his station was destroyed. "This is Captain Morrison. The Zephyrian Empire has attacked our colonies without warning. They have killed our families and our children. Do not mourn for us. Make them pay." The signal cut to black, but across human space something was waking up, something the aliens had never seen before, something that had survived ice ages and world wars and the long journey to the stars. The Zephyrian Empire thought they had won an easy victory. They had no idea what they had just started. Admiral Ben Parker sat in his office on Earth, watching the message from New Montana for the 10th time. Each time he saw the alien ships destroying the mining stations, his anger grew hotter. His hands gripped the desk so hard his knuckles were white. The door opened and Dr. Amy Foster walked in. She had escaped from the station in an emergency pod before it was destroyed. Her clothes were torn and she had bandages on her arms, but her eyes burned with fury. "How many dead?" Ben asked without looking away from the screen. 50,000 on New Montana, maybe more. Amy's voice was quiet but hard. "They killed families, Ben. Little kids who never hurt anyone." Ben stood up and walked to the window. Outside, he could see the Earth Defense Fleet. Hundreds of ships were gathering in orbit. More arrived every hour from the outer colonies. Word was spreading fast. "What do we know about these Zephyrians?" he asked. Amy pulled out a data pad. "I got a good look at their technology before the station was destroyed. They're more advanced than us. Stronger weapons, better shields, faster ships. But Ben, I think they made a mistake." "What kind of mistake?" "They think we're weak because we're not as advanced. They think we'll surrender like the other species they conquered. But they don't understand humans." Ben turned around. His face was grim. "What don't they understand?" "We don't surrender ever, even when we should." The communication system beeped. Messages were coming in from all over human space. Colony governors, ship captains, even farmers and miners were volunteering to fight. Everyone had seen the pictures from New Montana. On the colony world of Haven, Roy Collins was working in his machine shop when the news arrived. He had been a mechanic in the Defense Force before he retired to fix farming equipment. Now he looked at his tools with new eyes. "Martha," he called to his wife, "get the children ready. We're going underground." Martha Collins came out of the house carrying their baby daughter. Their son, Billy, who was 8 years old, held onto her hand. "What's happening?" she asked. "War," Roy said simply. "The aliens will come here next. But we're going to be ready for them." Roy wasn't the only one preparing. Across Haven Colony, people were digging shelters and hiding supplies. Former soldiers taught farmers how to fight. Engineers showed miners how to build bombs from mining equipment. On the frontier world of Liberty, Helen Wright was teaching school when the message came. She watched her students' faces change as they saw the burning colonies. These children had been born in space. They had never seen Earth, but they knew they were human. "Miss Wright," asked a girl named Susan, "are the bad aliens coming here?" Helen knelt down beside her students. She thought about lying, about telling them everything would be okay, but these children deserved the truth. "Maybe," she said. "But if they do, we'll be ready." "Do you know what makes humans special?" The children shook their heads. "We never give up. Even when things look bad, we keep fighting. Even when we're scared, we protect each other. That's what humans do." Back on Earth, Admiral Parker was meeting with the Defense Council. Generals and admirals from all over human space appeared on screens around the room. Some were old friends from the last war with pirates. Others were young officers who had never seen real combat. "Gentlemen, ladies," Parker began, "you've all seen what happened at New Montana. The Zephyrian Empire has declared war on humanity. They think we're weak. They think we'll run away. Are they right?" "Hell no," said General Steve Hayes from the Mars Defense Station. His weathered face was angry. "My grandfather fought in the colony wars. He taught me that you never back down from a bully." "What are our chances?" asked Admiral Kate Sullivan from the Jupiter fleet. She was young but smart. one of the best engineers in the Defense Force. Dr. Foster answered from her chair near the window. Honestly, not good. They have better technology and more ships. In a straight fight, they'll win. The room went quiet. Then Admiral Parker smiled, and it wasn't a nice smile. Good thing we don't fight straight, he said. He turned to the big screen showing human space. Red dots marked the Zephyrian ships. Blue dots showed human colonies. The aliens conquered 12 other species, he said, but those species fought like they did. Big fleets, formal battles, clean surrenders when they lost. They don't know about humans. What do you mean? Asked General Hayes. They don't know we spent 1,000 years learning to kill each other. They don't know about guerrilla warfare. They don't know that we'll fight with rocks and sticks if we have to. They think war is about winning battles. We know it's about making the enemy quit. Dr. Foster stood up. I've been studying their technology. They're advanced, but they're predictable. Everything they do follows rules. They can't think outside their patterns. And we can? Asked Admiral Sullivan. Kate, you turned a garbage truck into a racing ship when you were 15, Parker said. Roy Collins once fixed a battleship with spare parts from a coffee machine. We've been improvising since we left Earth. It's what we do. The meeting went on for hours. They planned defenses for the colonies. They organized supply lines. They decided which ships would fight and which would evacuate civilians. But the most important decision was simple. No matter what happened, no matter how many aliens came, humans would not surrender. Ever. On the colony worlds, people watched the sky and waited. Families said goodbye as fathers and sons joined the defense forces. Mothers and daughters learned to shoot guns and build explosives. The message from New Montana played on every screen in human space. Over and over, people watched Captain Morrison throw that piece of metal at the alien's face. They heard his last words, make them pay. Children too young to understand war knew that something bad was coming, but they also knew their parents would protect them, that humans would fight for them. In space, the Zephyrian fleet was moving toward more human colonies. Admiral Caxoth was pleased with his easy victory at New Montana. He expected the humans to surrender soon. His species had conquered so many others this way. Show them their weakness and they would give up. But deep in space, human ships were moving too. Small groups of fighters, converted cargo ships, anything that could mount weapons. They weren't running away from the aliens, they were hunting them. The Zephyrian Empire was about to learn something new. They were about to discover what happened when you attacked the children of a species that had clawed its way from caves to stars through pure stubbornness. They were about to meet humanity at war. General Vextar stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching the human colony of Haven grow larger on the screen. The Zephyrian Empire had sent him to finish what Admiral Caxoth started. His orders were simple: destroy all human resistance and claim their worlds. Begin the attack, he commanded. Blue energy beams reached down toward the planet's surface, but instead of the easy destruction they expected, the Zephyrians found empty towns. The humans had evacuated to underground shelters and hidden bases. Sir, reported his weapons officer, the surface targets are abandoned. We're hitting empty buildings. Vextar's four eyes narrowed. Where are they hiding? Before anyone could answer, alarms began screaming throughout the ship. On the tactical display, small human ships appeared from behind asteroids and debris fields. They had been waiting. Captain Steve Hayes led the attack in his converted mining ship, the Iron Wolf. It wasn't pretty or fast, but it was tough and carried weapons that could hurt the alien ships. Steve had learned to fight in the pirate wars where being clever mattered more than having fancy equipment. All ships attack pattern Delta, he ordered over the radio. Hit them hard and get out fast. The human ships moved like a pack of wolves. They targeted the alien ships' engines and weapon systems, then disappeared back into the asteroid field before the Zephyrians could respond. It wasn't the kind of fighting the aliens understood. Cowards, Vextar snarled. They won't stand and fight. His tactical officer looked confused. General, their strategy doesn't match any known military doctrine. They're not trying to win battles. They're just trying to hurt us. On the planet below, Roy Collins was leading a group of colonists through underground tunnels. They had been digging and hiding weapons for weeks, ever since the message from New Montana. Roy carried a rifle made from mining equipment. It looked crude, but it could punch holes through alien armor. Remember, he told his people, we're not trying to beat them in a fair fight. We're trying to make them bleed. Every alien we kill, every ship we damage makes them weaker. The tunnel opened into a hidden bunker near the alien landing zone. Through the periscope, Roy could see Zephyrian soldiers searching the empty town. They moved in perfect formations following their training. "Too bad for them," whispered Helen Wright. The former teacher now carried a bag full of homemade explosives. "They're fighting by rules. We're not." The attack came from everywhere at once. Hidden guns opened fire from buildings. Explosives went off under alien feet. Human fighters appeared from sewers and basements, shot at the aliens, then disappeared again. The Zephyrian soldiers were stronger and had better weapons, but they couldn't hit enemies they couldn't see. Their rigid formations fell apart as humans attacked from all directions. In space, Steve Hayes was having his own problems. The Iron Wolf shook as alien weapons hit its armor. Sparks flew from damaged systems, but the tough mining ship kept fighting. "Kate, I need more power to the engines," Steve called to his engineer. Kate Sullivan was deep in the ship's engine room, covered in grease and sweat. She had built new weapons from spare parts and alien technology they had salvaged from previous battles. Her hands flew over the controls as she diverted power from life support to the weapons. "You've got it, but we can't keep this up much longer," she called back. Steve looked at the tactical display. More alien ships were coming. Too many to fight, but that wasn't the plan. "All ships, Phase 2, he ordered. The human fleet split up and ran in different directions. The aliens followed, chasing the smaller groups. But they were being led into a trap. Hidden among the asteroids were cargo ships full of explosives. As the alien ships passed, the cargo ships detonated. The explosions tore through the Zephyrian formation, destroying several ships and damaging many others. General Vextar watched his fleet take damage and felt something he had never experienced before. Fear. Not fear of death, but fear of an enemy he couldn't understand. "How are they doing this?" he demanded. "They're primitives. They should be running in terror." His intelligence officer studied the battle reports. "Sir, I think we misunderstood their nature. Every other species we conquered fought to defend their territory. Humans fight to hurt us. They don't care about winning or losing. They just want to make us pay." On Haven's surface, the battle was getting worse. Roy's group had destroyed several alien vehicles, but more kept coming. The humans were running out of ammunition and hiding places. "We need to fall back," Helen said. Her face was dirty and tired, but her eyes were still angry. "No," Roy said firmly. "Every minute we keep them busy here is time for the other colonies to prepare. We hold until we can't hold anymore." A young colonist named Dan Cooper spoke up. He had been a farmer before the war, growing food for the colony. Now he carried explosives and fought like a veteran soldier. "Roy's right," Dan said. "My family is on the next world they'll attack. If we don't stop them here, they'll kill more innocents." The fighting continued through the night. Humans fell back from position to position, making the aliens pay for every step. The Zephyrians had superior weapons and armor, but they were fighting an enemy that refused to quit. By morning, most of the human fighters were dead or wounded. Roy Collins lay in a ruined building bleeding from multiple wounds. But he was still shooting at alien soldiers through a broken window. Helen Wright found him there. She was hurt too, but she could still walk. "Roy, we have to go. The evacuation ships are leaving." Roy shook his head. "I'm done running. But you go. Tell them what happened here. Tell them we made the bastards bleed." Helen wanted to argue, but she knew he was right. Someone had to survive to tell the story. Someone had to let the galaxy know that humans didn't go quietly. She kissed Roy's forehead and ran for the evacuation point. Behind her, the sound of gunfire continued. Roy Collins fought until his ammunition ran out, then picked up a knife. He never stopped fighting. In space, Steve Hayes received the evacuation signal. His fleet had done its job. They had hurt the alien fleet and bought time for the civilians to escape. But the cost had been high. Most of his ships were destroyed or damaged beyond repair. "All ships withdraw to Rally Point 7, he ordered. The Iron Wolf limped away from Haven, its hull cracked and its engines failing, but it was still flying, still fighting. General Vextar stood over Roy Collins' body in the ruined town. The human had killed 12 Zephyrian soldiers before he died. His face still showed defiance even in death. "What kind of species fights like this?" Vextar asked his aide. The aide studied the tactical reports. "Sir, we've conquered the colony, but at what cost? We lost 6 ships and 300 soldiers to defeat a few thousand farmers and miners. If this is how they fight when they're unprepared, what will happen when they're ready for us?" Vextar didn't answer. He was thinking about the human's last words, transmitted over an open channel so everyone could hear. "You want to know what we're made of?" Keep coming and find out. The Zephyrian Empire had won the battle for Haven, but for the first time in their history, they wondered if they might lose the war. Back on Earth, Admiral Parker watched the reports from Haven. The colony was lost, but the defense had cost the aliens more than they expected. Much more. How many did we hurt? He asked. Dr. Foster checked her datapad. 6 ships destroyed, maybe 10 more damaged. 300 alien soldiers dead. And Ben, they're moving slower now. They're being more careful. Parker nodded. Good, careful means scared. And scared enemies make mistakes. The war was escalating. Both sides were learning about each other. The aliens were discovering that humans fought differently than anyone they had ever faced. And humans were learning that even superior enemies could bleed. But the real test was still coming. Commander Alex Turner stood on the bridge of the battleship Defiance, watching the Zephyrian fleet surround his small force. 30 alien ships against his 5. The odds were hopeless, but Alex had stopped caring about odds weeks ago. Sir, they're demanding our surrender, reported his communications officer. Alex looked around his bridge. His crew was young, most of them barely out of training. But they had volunteered for this mission knowing they probably wouldn't come home. Their faces showed fear but also determination. Tell them to go to hell, Alex said calmly. The battle began immediately. Blue energy beams tore through space as the alien ships opened fire. The Defiance shook under the assault, but its thick armor held. Human ships were built tough, designed to survive in the harsh environment of space. Return fire, Alex ordered. The human ships fought back with everything they had. Their weapons were less advanced than the aliens, but they were reliable and deadly. More importantly, the humans knew how to use them. Alex had studied every battle report from the war. He knew the aliens fought in predictable patterns. They followed rules and formations that made sense for fighting other civilized species. But humans weren't civilized when they were angry. All ships ramming speed, he ordered. His tactical officer looked shocked. Sir, that's suicide. No, Alex said. That's war. The human ships accelerated directly at the alien fleet. The Zephyrians expected them to turn away at the last second. No rational species would deliberately crash their ships into the enemy, but humans weren't feeling rational. The first human ship smashed into a Zephyrian cruiser at full speed. Both ships exploded in a ball of fire. The second human ship followed, taking out another alien vessel. The aliens scattered in confusion, their formation breaking apart. The Defiance was the last human ship left. It was badly damaged, but Alex kept it flying through pure determination. Around him, his bridge crew worked at their stations even as sparks flew and systems failed. Weapons offline, reported his gunner. Engines at 20%, called his engineer. Hull breaches on all decks, added his damage control officer. Alex looked at the remaining alien ships. There were still 20 of them, circling like sharks around a wounded whale. But something had changed. They were keeping their distance, afraid to get too close. They're scared, he realized. They've never fought an enemy that fights back when they're dying. On the planet below, Dr. Rachel Stone was watching the battle from her underground laboratory. She had been studying Zephyrian psychology for months, trying to understand how their minds worked. What she had discovered would change everything. The aliens were advanced and intelligent, but they had one crucial weakness. They had never lost before. Their entire military doctrine was based on fighting enemies who would surrender when the situation became hopeless. They don't know how to fight desperate enemies, she said to her assistant. Every other species they conquered gave up when they were clearly beaten. But humans get more dangerous when they're cornered. She activated the communications array and sent a message to Admiral Parker on Earth. Ben, I know how to beat them. It's not about destroying their ships. It's about breaking their will to fight. Back in space, Alex was putting Rachel's theory to the test. The Defiance was dying around him, but he kept fighting. He used the ship's last missiles to damage alien engines. He rammed smaller debris into their sensor arrays. He made them pay for every second they stayed in the battle. The alien commander contacted him on an open channel. General Vextar's face appeared on the screen, his 4 eyes wide with something that might have been respect or fear. Human commander, the alien said, your ship is destroyed. Your crew is dying. Why don't you surrender? Alex looked at the general through the smoke and sparks of his ruined bridge. Because that's not what humans do. He reached for the self-destruct button. If he was going to die, he would take as many aliens with him as possible. But before he could activate it, New ships appeared on the scanner. Human reinforcements led by Captain Steve Hayes in a rebuilt Iron Wolf. The rescue fleet had arrived just in time. "Alex, get your people out of there." Steve's voice crackled over the radio. "We'll cover your retreat." Alex wanted to stay and fight, but he looked at his young crew. They had done enough. They had shown the aliens what humans were made of. "All hands abandon ship," he ordered. The surviving crew members escaped in life pods while Steve's fleet held off the aliens. The Defiance exploded a few minutes later, but its crew lived to fight another day. On Earth, Admiral Parker was meeting with the War Council again. The reports from the frontier were grim. The aliens were advancing on all fronts, conquering colony after colony. But something was changing. "They're slowing down," reported General Hayes. "Each battle cost them more than the last. Their advance has gone from weeks to months." Dr. Foster stood up and activated a holographic display. It showed the war from the beginning, with red dots marking alien victories and blue dots showing human resistance. "Look at the pattern," she said. "Every time they attack, we hurt them more than they expect. They're starting to wonder if this war is worth the cost." "What do you mean?" asked Admiral Parker. "The Zephyrian Empire conquered 12 species in 50 years. Most of those wars lasted less than a month. We've been fighting them for 6 months, and we're not even close to surrendering. They've never faced anything like this." On the frontier world of Liberty, Dan Cooper was leading the last defense of the colony. The aliens had finally reached the outer settlements, and this would be humanity's final stand on the planet. Dan had learned to fight during the battle for Haven. He had seen Roy Collins die rather than surrender, and that lesson burned in his heart. Humans didn't give up. Ever. His force was small, maybe 200 farmers and miners armed with improvised weapons. The alien army had thousands of professional soldiers with advanced equipment. But Dan had something the aliens couldn't understand. "Listen up," he told his people. "They think this is about winning and losing. But it's not. It's about making them hurt so bad they never want to fight humans again." The battle for liberty lasted 3 weeks. The humans fought from every building, every tunnel, every hole in the ground. They used traps and ambushes and suicide attacks. They made the aliens pay for every step forward. When ammunition ran out, they used knives and rocks. When the knives broke, they used their bare hands. The aliens had better weapons and armor, but they had never fought an enemy that simply refused to quit. By the end, most of the human defenders were dead. But they had killed over 1,000 alien soldiers and destroyed dozens of vehicles. The survivors retreated to the mountains and continued fighting as guerrilla fighters. General Vextar stood in the ruins of Liberty's capital city. His army had won, but it felt like defeat. Half his soldiers were dead or wounded. His equipment was damaged or destroyed. And somewhere in the mountains, the remaining humans were still shooting at his patrols. "Sir," his aide reported, "Command is asking when we'll be ready to attack the next colony." Vextar looked at the casualty reports. In 6 months of fighting, the Zephyrian Empire had lost more soldiers than in 50 years of previous conquests. And the humans showed no signs of giving up. "Tell Command we need reinforcements," he said quietly. "Many reinforcements." For the first time in Zephyrian history, an army was asking for help to fight a supposedly primitive enemy. Back on Earth, the reports were coming in from across human space. The aliens were winning battles but losing the war. Every victory cost them more than they could afford. Every conquered world required thousands of soldiers to control the human resistance. "They're learning what we learned centuries ago," Admiral Parker said to his staff. "It's easier to start a war than to end one." Dr. Rachel Stone had been studying the alien communications they had intercepted. The messages between Zephyrian commanders showed growing frustration and doubt. "They're starting to question their leaders," she reported. "Some of their generals are saying this war was a mistake. They're discovering that humans fight differently than everyone else they've conquered." "How so?" asked Parker. "Other species fight to defend their territory. When they lose their homeworlds, they surrender. But humans don't have just one homeworld. Every colony is home to someone. Every settlement is worth dying for. We're not fighting to keep what we have. We're fighting because that's who we are." The revelation was spreading through the Zephyrian Empire. Their perfect military machine was breaking down against an enemy that refused to follow the rules. An enemy that got stronger when it was hurt, more dangerous when it was desperate. The aliens were beginning to understand that they hadn't just attacked another species. They had attacked the children of a world that had taught its people that the only unforgivable thing was giving up, and humans never gave up. Admiral Claire Evans stood on the bridge of the Earth battleship Vengeance, watching the Zephyrian homeworld grow larger on the screen. Behind her, the largest fleet in human history spread across space like an angry constellation. 2 years of war had led to this moment. The Zephyrian Empire was no longer advancing. They were defending their core worlds from an enemy they had created through their own cruelty. The humans weren't just fighting back anymore. They were hunting. "All ships report ready," said her tactical officer. Claire nodded. She had learned to fight in the desperate early days of the war, when human colonies were burning and defeat seemed certain. Now she commanded a fleet that struck fear into alien hearts across the galaxy. "General Webb, are your ground forces ready?" she asked over the communication system. From the assault ships, General Marcus Webb's voice came back strong and confident. "Marines are locked and loaded, Admiral. We've been waiting 2 years for this." Marcus had been a simple soldier when the war began. He had fought in the underground tunnels of Haven and survived the massacre at Liberty. Now he led the human forces that would land on the Zephyrian homeworld itself. The plan was complex, but brutal. Human fleets would attack from 6 different directions while ground forces landed on the planet. But this wasn't just about conquest. This was about sending a message that would echo across the galaxy for centuries. "Begin the attack," Claire ordered. Space filled with fire as hundreds of human ships opened fire on the alien defense fleet. The Zephyrians had learned to fear human tactics during 2 years of fighting. They knew humans would do things no sane species would attempt. Captain Steve Hayes led the first assault wave in the rebuilt Iron Wolf. The mining ship had been destroyed and rebuilt 3 times during the war, but it always came back stronger. Like humanity itself, remember, people? Steve's voice crackled over the radio. "They started this war by killing our families. Today we finish it." The human ships moved like a pack of predators that had finally cornered their prey. They used ramming attacks and suicide runs alongside conventional weapons. They targeted the aliens' command ships and supply vessels, cutting the head off the enemy fleet. On the planet below, General Webb's Marines were landing in the capital city. The Zephyrians had never faced invasion of their homeworld. For 1,000 years they had been the conquerors. Now they were learning what it felt like to be on the other side. The human soldiers fought with a fury that terrified the aliens. These weren't professional soldiers following orders. These were the survivors of burned colonies, the children of murdered families, the descendants of a species that had clawed its way from caves to stars through pure stubbornness. Marcus Webb led his troops through the alien streets, his rifle cutting down any Zephyrian that stood in their way. He thought about Roy Collins dying in the ruins of Haven, about Dan Cooper holding the line at Liberty, about all the humans who had sacrificed everything to reach this moment. "For New Montana," he shouted as his forces advanced. "For Haven, for Liberty, for all the innocents they murdered." The aliens tried to organize a defense, but their command structure was falling apart. Zephyrian generals who had conquered a dozen worlds couldn't understand how their perfect military was being destroyed by supposedly primitive humans. In the orbital battle, Admiral Claire Evans was putting the final pieces of her plan into motion. The main Zephyrian fleet was trapped between 2 human forces, caught in a crossfire they couldn't escape. But the real target wasn't the fleet. It was the massive space station that served as the Empire's military headquarters. Inside that station, the alien leadership was making desperate plans to save their civilization. "Kate, I need you to get us through their defenses," Claire said to her chief engineer. Kate Sullivan had survived the early battles and learned to build weapons from alien technology. Now she controlled the most advanced human ship ever constructed, a fusion of human ingenuity and captured Zephyrian science. "I've got something special for them," Kate said with a grim smile. The Vengeance accelerated toward the space station, its hull glowing with energy. Kate had modified the ship's engines to overload on command, turning the entire vessel into a massive bomb. But they wouldn't need to destroy themselves. They had a better plan. Instead of ramming the station, the Vengeance fired a new type of weapon Kate had invented. It was a fusion of human creativity and alien technology, designed specifically to penetrate Zephyrian shields. The weapon tore through the station's defenses like they were made of paper. Emergency alarms screamed throughout the alien command center as their supposedly impregnable fortress came under direct attack. Inside the station, Admiral Caxoth was watching his empire crumble. The alien who had ordered the first attack on human civilians now faced the consequences of his actions. Human ships filled his screens, destroying everything his people had built. "Sir," his aide reported with terror in his voice, "they're demanding to speak with you." Caxoth knew he had no choice. The human fleet could destroy the station at any moment. He had to try to negotiate, though he suspected it was too late for mercy. The screen activated, showing the bridge of the human flagship. Admiral Claire Evans stood there, flanked by officers whose faces showed no sympathy, no forgiveness. Behind them, the stars were filled with human ships. "I am Admiral Caxoth," he said, trying to keep his voice steady. "I wish to discuss terms of surrender." Claire studied the alien who had started this war. She thought about the images from New Montana, the burning colonies, the murdered children. Her voice was cold as space when she spoke. "There are no terms," she said. "You will order all Zephyrian forces to surrender immediately. Your empire is finished." "You cannot destroy an entire civilization," Caxoth protested. "We are willing to make reparations to compensate for our mistakes." "Mistakes?" Claire's voice turned dangerous. "You murdered 50,000 civilians on New Montana. You burned our colonies and enslaved our people. Those weren't mistakes. They were choices. On the planet below, the fighting was reaching its climax. General Webb's forces had fought their way to the Capitol building, where the Zephyrian government was hiding. The aliens had barricaded themselves inside, hoping their reinforcements would arrive in time. But the reinforcements weren't coming. The human fleet had destroyed or scattered every Zephyrian ship in the system. Marcus kicked down the doors of the government building and led his troops inside. The aliens who had once commanded a dozen conquered worlds now cowered behind furniture and decorative plants. In the deepest bunker of the building, Marcus found the Zephyrian leaders. They were old aliens with gray skin and tired eyes, the architects of their empire's expansion across the galaxy. "We surrender," one of them said in broken human language. "Please show mercy." Marcus looked at these aliens who had shown no mercy to human children. He thought about every colony that had burned, every family that had died, every human who had fought and bled to reach this moment. "Mercy is for species that don't murder children," he said. Back in space, the final act was playing out on Admiral Caxoth's command station. The alien who had started the war faced the human who would finish it. Captain Jake Morrison walked onto the bridge of the alien station, flanked by human Marines. He had survived the destruction of Defense Station Alpha through luck and determination. Now he had come to settle the debt. Caxoth looked at the human officer and realized who he was. "You were the one at New Montana. You should have died with your station." Jake smiled, but it wasn't a pleasant expression. "I lived to see this moment. To see you pay for what you did to my people." The two commanders faced each other in the ruins of the Zephyrian Empire. Around them, alien officers surrendered or fled. The perfect military machine that had conquered 12 species was broken beyond repair. "Your empire is finished," Jake said. "Your fleets are destroyed. Your worlds are under human control. You have nothing left." Caxoth's 4 eyes burned with hatred. "You think you've won? Other species will hear about this. They'll unite against you. You've shown the galaxy what humans really are." Jake nodded. "Good, let them know. Let every species in the galaxy understand what happens when you attack our families, when you murder our children, when you mistake human kindness for human weakness." He drew his sidearm and pointed it at the alien admiral. "You wanted to know what we're made of. This is what we're made of. This is what you get when you cross the line." Caxoth closed his eyes, waiting for death. But Jake didn't pull the trigger. "No," Jake said quietly. "Death is too easy for you. You're going to live. You're going to spend the rest of your life in a human prison, thinking about every choice that led you here. And every day you'll remember that you did this to yourself." The war was over. The Zephyrian Empire surrendered unconditionally. Their fleets were destroyed, their worlds occupied, their government dissolved. The species that had conquered 12 others was now ruled by the primitive humans they had attacked. But the real victory wasn't military. It was the message that echoed across the galaxy. Humanity had shown every species what happened when you attacked their families. They had proven that some enemies were too dangerous to fight, too stubborn to defeat, too angry to reason with. Years later, when other species considered expanding into human space,